these are all such wonderful, really pieces of information. What else you got?
Well, as I said before, we're limited in terms of
I
time, and I
know,
want to
but
switch gears a little bit and talk about the mobile world. And
please
it really
do.
ties into this whole career transition situation, because what's happened is there are close to 8 billion people in this world. Close to 5 billion people have cell phones.
What are the other couple do?
They make phone calls.
There are no phones anywhere
That's true.
anymore.
That's true.
Or they have little, they set up like a smoke signal type of
I know
communication.
there are people that are still doing it. But the important part of this is that with over 90% of the people in the United States having cell phones, okay, we're talking about the fact that 3 out of 5 business people report that they spend an awful lot of time, most of their time, outside of their office. And the important thing now is that you don't have to be at your office to be able to get information or communicate. And this is where smartphones come in. And what we're really talking about is an Android.
Oh, and I'm going to
We're
get
talking
mine.
about
I can't
an
even
iPhone.
find it.
And
Mine's
there are
somewhere down
Blackberries
there as
Well,
well.
that's okay, but yours looks an awful lot like mine.
Right,
And
exactly.
these smartphones, by the way, represented well over 50% of all cell phones that were sold in 2011. Over half of all cell phones, whether they were new purchases or whether they were upgrades. And the reason for that is that within the next 3 years, more people will be accessing the internet through a handheld device than with their computer. Now, if you think about that, that means that these handheld devices have got to be doing a lot of things that computers do. And what a smartphone can do for you is not only talk, but you can get your emails. You can
Definitely.
surf the web. If you want to check a restaurant, you want to check a movie, etc. If you're running late for a meeting, the best part of it is some people can't answer the phone. Send them a text message. Now, I know you can do that on a regular cell phone, but you can't on a regular cell phone really get involved with looking things up or even, communication. So the great thing about it is that it allows you to be out of the house and to be able to travel. Now, the question that I get all the time is, what type of smartphone should I get? And the
Right.
answer is, I sat and I gave a workshop a few weeks ago, and there was about 150 people there, and some guy raises his hand and goes, what do you recommend, an iPhone, an Android, or a BlackBerry? And my answer was, I don't know.
Whatever's good for you.
Well, that's very good. That's very important because everybody's needs are different. Now, what are the differences? There are subtle differences, but they're real important. The iPhone. The iPhone is a great device. Steve Jobs' his operating system is superb. However, it's a touch screen.
Yes.
And if you've got chubby little fingers, you're going to have a problem with that. No iPhone comes with a keyboard. This is an Android phone.
What I have,
And
an
and it's what
Android.
we both
Right,
use. And
right.
the reason for that is it has a keyboard.
And so here's the
so we
funny
can
thing.
type.
I got an Android because of the keyboard. I've never used the keyboard.
Well,
I
that's
only
great.
use the touch part.
So your next
But
phone's going to be an iPhone?
I don't know what my next phone's going to be. I mean, I'm steeped in technology, although I don't love it.
Technology or the phone?
Any kind of use. I mean, computers, I get frustrated. Phones, I use for email or, speaking. But it can do everything. So I have a question. If you're out, as we were talking about, and you need to get on a conference call or you can do that on that. What about a virtual call where people are teleconferencing? Is that, I don't want to sound pretty dumb, but is that available?
Well, it's definitely doable, okay? And I would suggest that if you're going to be doing a lot of that and you're going to be mobile, which we talked about before, you can do it much easily on a tablet because
okay.
it's a bigger screen. I mean, I think I'd have a miserable time trying to have 2 or 3 people do this type of thing as well.
Right.
My eyes aren't that great to begin with. But the fact of the matter is that anything that you can do on a computer, you can do on a handheld device,
Right.
except write your life story. I mean,
Right,
that
right.
obviously
And, right.
requires a computer. The important thing, though, is if you're going to make a decision and you want to go the smartphone route, I've had people call up and say, oh, my daughter or my grandchild got me this wonderful iPhone. I don't really know what to do with it. The thing to keep in mind, by the way, is not what the phone looks like, but the provider. And the provider is Verizon, AT&T, Sprint,
Right.
T-Mobile, da da da
Right.
da da. And the
Exactly.
reason I mention why the provider is important is because it's the reception. In other words, we live in New York City,
Right.
and
Go to Podunk somewhere,
you go to, well, it's
and
very
you
interesting.
might not get reception.
Well, I have Verizon, okay? And my son, who I visit out in San Jose, California, has Sprint. I can be in San Jose and I'll get drop calls. He uses Sprint and doesn't get any. But the fact of the matter is, since I spend most of my time in and around the New York area,
Right.
I'm a Verizon user. So what you really need to do is you need to find out, based on where you're going to spend most of your time, whether it's home or in your office, what service works
Right.
best for you.
Wonderful.
And the
Perfect.
question that I always get is, how do you know that? Well, you ask your neighbors, or you ask
Would
your
you knock on
coworkers.
doors and say, "Oh, we live in an apartment. What kind of service do you use?
Well, you know
What
something?
provider do you use?"
You're 100% right. You must do that. If you're going to be moving and you're going to be going into a place, you may find that the service that you're using isn't working. Before I sold my apartment about a year and a half ago, I had a pre-war building that was lengthwise, and I could not use my cell phone in my living room.
You had to
The
go out
signal
on
was
the ledge.
terrible.
Like you,
I wish I had a terrace. I didn't have a terrace.
No, go out
So-
on the ledge of your window.
But the important thing is that you need to pick a provider first. That's important. Once you've picked a provider, then you look at the phones they've got. Then you pick them up and you see what you're comfortable with. It's the same thing. Before they had, all these mobile phones, people said, what type of computer should I get? What type of laptop did I get? I said, there are three things that are important with a laptop. First is the weight. Second is the screen. And the third is what? The keyboard.
Right.
And why do I say keyboard? Because some of these computers, they have flat keys, and some of them have raised keys. So it's the same thing. Just because an iPhone is so popular, or just because the Android is so popular, it doesn't mean it's right for you.
Right,
I have a
exactly.
client that wanted the Android in the worst way. She got the Android and she hated it. Now, we went back to the store with her, and she said, I want an iPhone. And I said, okay. So we picked up the iPhone. She started to play with it a little bit. She goes, I can't.
Right. Get because it goes so quickly.
But you know what she got? She got a BlackBerry.
Very.
Because she was used to the keys.
You're right.
So I can't answer that one is better than the
Right,
other.
right.
It depends on provider first. You have to play with it, okay? And you have to make sure that you're comfortable with the keys and the screen,
Right.
okay, once
Wonderful.
you've decided on the provider.
Wow. Well, we've gotten some really good information here. What about something we talked about at dinner? Road warrior.
What is a road
Yeah,
warrior?
what is it? I had no clue. So fill us in,
Okay.
me included.
We are sitting in a studio. We're not sitting in an office, so what are we?
That's true.
We are road warriors. We're people, and we sat at dinner, and you were on your phone. You had to make a phone call. I got a couple of emails. We're road warriors, and most people that are out there are road warriors without even realizing it. So, it's very, very important that because most of us do spend our times away from home base,
Right.
to have the right equipment, which we're talking about, and having the right understanding of what types of services are available on the road. I've got two very, very good software programs that are web-based that I use all the time. One is called Evernote, and it's just the way it sounds. You can make little notes. My father, when he used to come home at night, he used to empty his pockets of all these little notes that were all over the place. What I do is, whether I'm at any computer, any handheld device, I go to evernote.com, I have a username and a password the same way you do for your email. And I make
Interesting.
little notes to myself. Meet Terry at 6:20. Okay? Pick up a quart of milk, whatever it happens to be. And what happens
And
is that if I'm on the road, I'll just put it into Evernote. Or if I'm at home, I'll put
okay.
it there as well.
And
And it
and
follows me.
and how does it pop up? It's one thing to make notes, but if it's in a hidden place and you can't see it, how do you remember what the notes are unless it pops up?
Well, the answer is that on any of these devices, and I've turned this off so it doesn't ring.
Well, good.
Okay, there are little apps the same way you've
Right.
got little icons on the
Right.
computer, and
Right.
one of them says Evernote.
Okay.
And I'm not going to go into it here,
But-
but what I'm saying is you click on Evernote, you put in your username and password, and you can have a whole series of notes the way you would on a piece of paper, on a pad. And so what I do is I put down new note, and I list down quart of milk, Terry for dinner, whatever it happens to be. So I'm out on the road during the day, and I'm going, I know I wrote about something. What was it? So I
okay.
go to here, or the computer, no matter where I am, and I look it up and I say, oh yeah, dozen eggs, that type of thing. So, this is what we call this is a cloud-based service, but it's really meant for the road warrior.
So what's cloud-based mean?
Okay, when you go into, let's go
Is that a
wait.
fluffy white
Well, it
thing that
can
kind
be.
kind of wafts onto you?
That's what Steve Jobs made when he said iCloud. It looks like it's a waffly thing. But the answer to that question, quite frankly, is that going all the way back to the days of AOL, when you went into AOL, you were not going into really a site in your computer. You were going to AOL's site.
Okay.
So what you're doing is you are going through the cloud to someone else's server.
Okay.
Amazon, it's the same thing. I mean, you're not going into the Amazon thing on your computer. You're going into the cloud. So Evernote is in the cloud. Okay.
It's in the cloud
it's
somewhere.
in the cloud. Well, so is your Gmail, and the reason for that is, remember, you can go to your email if it's cloud-based, like a Gmail, a Yahoo, and AOL. From here, from your computer, from your iTablet, whatever. I was with a client today that's a photographer. And she said, what is the cloud? And she's sitting there with her iPhone, her iPad, and her computer, and 5,000 pictures sitting in her computer. And
I'm
I
going to
said,
stop you because this has been so fascinating that we have 2 minutes left, believe it or not. Fascinating stuff for...
time flies when you're having a good time.
Right, exactly. So I want to not have the time run out and not have you have a wrap-up and a last bit of information, a website, and what you'd like to leave everybody with.
Well, I'd like to leave everybody with really one thought. I think what you really need to do, whether it's for personal reasons or for professional reasons, to sit down and think about what you really need in this age of technology. And, what's important to you, and take inventory of what you've got. My client base is made up of people in career transition, and I have a lot of seniors that really want to know how to use the internet, whether it's Skype or whether it's Facebook.
Why don't you give us your website?
My website
So-
is www, which everything starts with, BlueTutor, BLUETUTOR.com, and if you access it, you can get my Blog Talk Radio show.
Oh, I
And
was on
my
it. It's
blog,
great.
You were on it. You were
Right.
fabulous.
That's great.
And the radio show is on her website.
Right.
But you can go there and you can find out an awful lot about some of the services that I've got. My email address is jblue@bluetutor.com, my domain name. My phone number is 917-921-4518, which is my cell phone. And I make a habit of returning every email and every phone call the same day, unless it's 11 p.m. at night. I might go over there as well. But, my specialty is keeping technology simple and really helping people cross this digital divide.
And I want to say thank you so much for coming and being our guest.
Well, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome.